Hi, everyone. My name is Isabella. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a sophomore at Lane Tech, and I'm a part of the Teen Advisory Council Urban Gateways.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lena. I'm a senior at Lane Tech, and I'm also a member of the Teen Advisory Council with Urban Gateways. And we're so happy to be hosting for you all today.
If you guys are not familiar with TAP, it stands for Teen Arts Pass. We are a program of arts education at the Urban Gateways, and through TAP, anyone ages 13 to 19 can get $5 tickets to performances with our partner organizations all around the Chicago area. Of course, there aren't performances to see right now, so TAP and Urban Gateways are working on other ways to provide interesting arts experiences for teens.
And so Isabel and I are members of the Urban Gateways Teen Advisory Council, a group of 12 teens from Chicago that inform teen arts programs, including TAP. We are the group responsible for today's event, and there will be a lot more coming from us soon. Follow at Teen Arts Pass on Instagram to be sure to sign up, and be sure to sign up on teenartspass.org to get more information about all of our upcoming free events for teens.
All right, so what is this? What are we doing today? So Hello, I Am Conversations with Artist Professionals is a Teen Arts Pass Council initiative to connect teens with artistic professionals. The Teen Council, we want to ensure that teens have the opportunity to hear about professional artists' journey in their artistic field. And we also want to make sure that teens have a chance to ask questions, get information. So please take advantage of the Q&A feature on Zoom. We're gonna have a Q&A section at the end of this, so feel free to add any questions there.
And so I'm so happy to introduce our artist today. Ada A is an early career playwright and director who graduated from the University of Chicago with a BA in anthropology. She was previously the assistant director for Sideshow's The Ridiculous Darkness and Haven's Titus, Andronicus. As a playwright, her 10-minute play, United Separatism, had a professional reading at the 2020 Fade to Black Festival. Her one-act play, The Reverend Dr. Polly Murray, had its world premiere at Valiant Theatre through its New Works Festival earlier this year. And with that, I'll pass it on to Isabella to ask our first questions.
Hi, all.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited. Right. So I'm going to start out just kind of a little icebreaker question. So I want to know, what would you say is kind of like the theme song of your life?
The theme song of my life. Oh, I really like that question. It changes, but I'm at this moment where the theme song. Oh, you're at the right time. It's "My Prerogative" by Bobby Brown. It's basically like the chorus is, "Why is everyone talking about my life? It's my life. I can do what I want." That's the paraphrase. Find the song. It's a lot better than what I gave it. And I'm at a place where I really feel like I just want to be in your face. My life. It's what I like. My money. I don't have a lot of it, but it's mine. Everything that's mine is mine. And I'm so tapped into that like desire to just blatantly in your face be like, my name is Ada. It's my prerogative. That's the theme song of my life at the moment.
I love that. That's so fitting. So fitting for today.
That's amazing. So the next question we have is, what inspired you to work as a playwright?
Oh, a playwright. It was hard. Because I majored in anthropology. Thank you, Tara, for dropping the link. But I majored in anthropology and I wanted to be an anthropologist. I wanted to do my PhD. I wanted to be an academic. I wanted to teach. And in the cliche, I took in my senior year of college, I took a playwriting class. And as the cliche goes, I fell in love. Oh my God, I have to do it. I feel called to it. It just combined all my interests because I always loved writing. I've always loved people, but then I also really like dialogue and the stage. I like theater in itself. And it was just a perfect sort of combination of everything I loved into anthropology and everything I loved about writing. And it all just joins into being a playwright. And I was just like, all right, let's try to do this thing. Just go for it. And I've been going for it.
Yeah. I mean, kind of seems like a combining of stuff in some ways too.
Sure.
So I just want to know, like, what was the first ever project that you worked on?
Yeah, the first play I wrote was in that, oh, it was so bad. Okay, but it was in that class. It was in that class, and it was about four girls. Obviously, I was in college. It was about four girls who are about to graduate, and they have to find their apartment for the next year. Truly writing my life. And it was just and it was about like it was sort of them. It's like a coming of age, but also a like breaking of relationships. Like when you have to go off to a new city, what your friendships kind of go away. And that's the mode I was in at the time. And so I wrote that. And then I reread it. I reread it a year ago. Oh, it was bad. It was so bad. I can't believe that was the play where I was like, I could be a playwright. Because when I look at it now, I'm like, girl, you should not be a playwright if that's the first thing you wrote. But I've gotten better. I've gotten so much better. But that was the first play I ever wrote. And I was so happy about it. And I got so much fulfillment from doing it. And then every time in class, you got to read your pages out loud that you wrote. So I was also hearing other people read my words and the power that that gives you. And I was like, oh, all right, this is it.
That actually sounds really exciting. And I feel like I would love to read that. And I'm sure it's not half as bad as you are saying.
I truly gave up. I was like halfway into like rereading it and I was like, I'm done. No more. No more.
That's really funny. What was the most memorable moment in your career so far?
Oh, I don't know if I can say it was a moment. I think it was there was one time where it was not something that it's not a production, right? It's not a reading. I would say there was one time where I was in the stage of rewriting a play that I had written. I was like second draft rewriting. And as I was rewriting, I was like, this is the first time and because no one's paying me to rewrite. No one's paying me to write these plays, right? No one's paying me to do any of this. Yeah, I just like sat down every day for like 2 weeks. I came, a certain hour of time I came and I wrote and I was rewriting. And I think I was in the second week and I was just so proud of myself for showing up and the discipline that took, but also how this was the first thing that I feel like I've ever done that I'm not getting paid to do it. I'm really just doing it because I feel like I need to do it and like this story deserves to like be worked on even though nobody sees it but myself. And so it's probably the moment that I was like, oh, I'm serious about this playwriting thing. Like, this isn't a joke. This isn't me just like, graduating and being like, I'm going to be a playwright. Like, in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a playwright and I'm serious about it because I'm even doing the work and I'm not even getting a check for it. Okay, you're about it. And I was super proud of myself. I was really proud of myself.
That sounds amazing. And so it's really great to sort of hear that moment where you realize that this is my life and this is what I actually want to do. And it's hard to not be incentivized and when that incentive isn't there to find your passion there. But that sounds really amazing. So the next question we have is sort of moving on to the current times. And as we all know, we're living through a global pandemic. And so my question is, what was your experience working in the middle of the pandemic?
Oh, wow. So I was not working actually, I would say. I wasn't working as a playwright for the most part. I've sort of been, or especially last year, the beginning of this year, I've been doing more writing. But especially last year when all the theaters shut down, I was like, all right, what do I do now? What's up? And I just like went into a funk, or not really a funk, but I was just like watching like a lot of shows and like consuming a lot of art that I never had the time to because of my work schedule. But also I was like watching a lot of things that all of a sudden I was just rediscovering what I liked. I was rediscovering like what genres I like and what people and what stories I like. And sort of using this moment because I would say before the lockdown, I was pretty jaded about playwriting and theater, right? Because I'm in early days. You don't get a lot of work in your early days. You're just out here. I was just out here scrounging, just trying to be in rooms, right? And feeling very much like my voice wasn't being heard, my art wasn't being seen, and I'm the artist of my generation. I should be seen. Like I had that type of like anger. that when theater shut down, I've sort of been using this moment as like that anger that I had, I was reminded like, oh, I actually really love theater. I actually really love playwriting. I actually really love this job that I'm doing. And I had so much ego behind it before. So it's been really nice sort of, even though like I haven't seen many theater shows, I haven't seen any, and I've just seen Zoom shows, right? Even though I haven't seen any, I've just been watching more television, more movies, more like visual art pieces, more getting into like anime, like Korean drama, just going into like really weird things I would never have the time to have consumed, and having that inspire me in ways where it's like, ooh, oh, because I watched this show, now I'm thinking about this idea. Oh, this idea would be perfect for the stage. So sort of letting myself be more inspired and letting myself sort of take from other art mediums have sort of been like my huge thing during COVID. Is like no longer am I just getting inspiration from theater and other playwrights and plays that I like. I'm now seeking out more like other mediums that can also work on stage.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how you just kind of found all these different mediums and kind of like incorporating it into like rewriting. I feel like this is kind of a good segue to move into my questions about your amazing show. So I got the chance to watch your show yesterday, called Tokens of Promise, for everyone tuning in. Very amazing show. I wanted to know, since we're talking about inspiration, what inspired you to write Tokens of Promise?
Being unemployed.
Oh, yeah.
Literally being unemployed, but also the job search. Feeling very, especially, you know, particularly thinking like right after college, right, getting a job, but just thinking about, I was so angry about what I felt like was happening to me when I would go to jobs or when I would interview for jobs, and feeling as though like we're both lying to each other. You're not being honest with me. I'm not being honest with you. Can't you just give me the job because I need this job because I need to pay rent? Like, you know, this idea that saying like, I need this job because I need to pay rent is the truth, but you can't say that in an interview. And then feeling as though like all of that is just one big just illusion that I don't care to like entertain. But then also sort of how like looking specifically, sometimes I specifically would look for like diversity fellowships, diversity jobs, especially in this time. There's so many out there that are geared specifically for women of color, people of color, gender minorities. Like they're asking for us. And sort of the idea that like I'm seeking out those jobs, even knowing that I don't even like the job search process, and feeling so I don't like the only, and I can't really articulate it. So I'm, because I'm not like an articulate person, but there is something about doing this game that just felt like we're all in this jungle of capitalism, and not in like an abstract way, but just like the essential thing of capital, right? It's just employer, employee, boss, and like the power dynamics in that. And so what inspired the play is me being unemployed and me being like, damn, I really have to, I gotta, you know, leverage who I am to get a job. I have to sell the right parts of me. I have to emphasize my language speaking or this one experience that I had just to make myself look good. And I just don't like that. I didn't like that. I was like, I'm a whole person. I don't like the idea that I have to pick and choose which parts of myself so I can look good to the person who can hire me. So that play came out of that frustration, but also how funny that is. That's actually like real. If I could just like, you know, if a fly on the wall was looking at my Google search and it was like Black woman job in finance fellowship, like that's a ridiculous Google search. That's absurd. Diversity fellowships in advertising. That's an absurd Google search. And I think it's funny. I also think it's sad that that's something that I Googled, right? So that was the inspiration. I look at my life and I can accurately look at my life and be like, okay, girl, if your mother was watching you do this, she would look at you and be like, come on now. Come on.
I think that's so incredible. And I think that's truly such an authentic take. I mean, this is an encounter that a lot of people face right now, and I can't even imagine you trying to leverage other parts of your identity, and like it's definitely a conversation that's starting right now, and also how that intersects with capitalism and the way that our society functions, and knowing that truly there's just like aspects of tokenization and all these other things that go into these like the workforce and things like that. And so I think that's super, super interesting. And thank you so much for sharing that. So the next question I have is based on the creation of Tokens of Promise and how it came to be. And so my question is, what was your experience working with Future Labs at the Goodman?
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Well, because first of all, it's really rare to be an early career playwright and like get a workshop opportunity. It's just rare unless you know the person, or you spent like 3 years at one theater and then like, all right, we're gonna give you an opportunity, right? But it's so rare to be able to workshop a play. So like the fact that I was able to do it with the Goodman, I was like, okay, great, cool. I have 1 week. But because it was my first time, I was like, okay, I have 1 week to perfect this play. Which isn't the right mentality or it's what I learned isn't helpful in a workshopping environment, just because like I can't make perfection in 1 week. And there are things that came up in the workshop, questions that were asked from actors, from everyone involved, right? Questions that were asked, feedback that was given, like curiosities that were sort of said in the room, things that sort of that sort of are living in my mind, and the ideas have to marinate, and like it marinates longer than that week-long process. So I kind of had to figure out sort of, okay, what can I do to make it presentable for the Saturday show? Like how much work can I do to just get it to Saturday? And like the script did change from the first rehearsal to what y'all saw yesterday or on that Saturday. And sort of the process was very much like, as a playwright, for the first time being like involved with people actually read it and they were giving me feedback, and like I had to sort of like take that and then thinking from the terms of, oh, what would an actor think about this character? How would a director do this scene? You know, all these different artists came in with a different perspective, which is so different than me as a writer. Because as a writer, I'm just like, all right, this is what I'm thinking, da da da. And then all of a sudden an actor will be like, okay, but why does she do that? Or why did she do this action? And I'm like, I don't know, I just wrote it. Like I wrote it. Like you know, all of a sudden I have to really think about why I put certain things in there. Yeah. And you know, it's funny to hear, or it's funny to engage with people from all these different like artist vantage points, because it forces, or it forces me as a writer to be like, oh, people will be reading your words. Like if you want this to be performed, like an actor and director will touch this text. You just can't like write this world with no contact. So it was fun. It was super fun because it's the first time I ever, or it's a rare opportunity for me to actually have that type of engagement with my work, seeing as playwriting is quite solitary for the most part. So the moment multiple people were talking about my play, I was like, okay, all right, cool.
Got like super hands-on in the week, right? Yeah. So I have a question actually. I watched your show, as I previously mentioned. I was totally blown away. So something that really stuck out to me is I felt that Ebony was really this person that was super experienced and was shown to be like this more strong, like internally strong person. And at the beginning of the show, there is this discussion between Ebony and Shar on like what the realities of the workplace are as somebody, of course, who's like a person of color. And so they also have this like discussion about how Shar should present herself as a person of color in an interview. So how do you think that that kind of conversation at the beginning sort of foreshadows, if at all, in your opinion, what actually happens in the interview?
I think the idea that Ebony basically tells Shar she can't be herself in that interview, and like if she was like Ebony, or if she comported herself in a certain way, if she took on certain mannerisms, if she sort of adopted this type of persona, this this uniform, right? If she put on a certain uniform in the interview, she will be a-okay. And I think it sort of shows up throughout the play, and this idea of all this sort of, it's not uniforms you play when you try to get the job or the uniforms you have to wear when you're in the workplace, but it's sort of like, how do you change? Like the uniform doesn't change. Like you think like a uniform on its surface is just like appearance, like it's an external change. And like it starts off with an external change that Ebony or that they're talking about, and by the end I want it to be like, oh, actually it's like a fundamental, like characters, like your it's not just your personality changes, but like the insides of your soul has to change. And like everything that makes you human devolves into this animal sort of primitive primal that comes out. And I think, and it's like a obviously very extreme case, right? But I wanted it to sort of track this journey of, it starts off as like, oh, just be me for this interview. And then by the end, it's like, oh, she's not even human. It's like you're asking her to pretend to be another human, but like by the end of the play, they kind of become animals. Because once you start pretending the first time, it might become easier, and then you do it more and more and more. You forget that, like, you might forget that you are a person inside, and then your costume. It's like that. I don't know why I'm thinking. It's like I don't know why I'm thinking about this image of like all this, like this person with a suit on, and then you take the suit off and it's just a little rat inside. Like, I don't know where the image is coming from. It's from some movie. I can't explain it, but it's sort of that all of a sudden you just disguised yourself, and it was a bad disguise. That's the image. I'm sorry. That's the image, and I can't explain it very well. But
no, that totally makes sense. Like kids in trench coats trying to sneak into
yes.
Yeah, that is really clear imagery. I can when you were going through that, I could literally just picture like a little a little mouse inside of this knight of armor. And so again, going off of kind of what Isabel was saying, in the show, Ebony shames Shar for getting an interview without with her parents' help. And in the reality of like the world that we live in, getting an interview with this hierarchy and this very real system of networking and parents is a very non-common experience for a lot of non-minority families, but it is our reality. What was Ebony's motivation in doing that?
I think Ebony, I don't think I know. Ebony grew up, it's sort of a class thing besides race. Like they're both Black, but Ebony grew up poor and Shar grew up middle class. And in those beginning scenes, there is a certain entitlement and pretentiousness that Shar has. That for some people can be grating, but honestly, it's just her life, right? That's the life that she was raised in. I think for someone like Shar, who became a lawyer, who's making six figures, who sort of grinded and did her job, and she's successful, right? She has money, she's a lawyer. Those are all markers of success in the world we live in. Whereas Shar, who's unemployed, isn't currently working, doesn't, like, she has a PhD, but it's not helpful in terms of she's still relying on her parents to pay rent and like live a life. And for Shar, who's worked so hard, and to see Ebony just like be able to call in her parents and like that gets her the interview, there is something of just like, oh, it's so easy for you. Oh, you didn't have to work as hard as me. And it's sort of like it's not a criticism, but I do want to think of all the ways in which, like, for certain middle class people, like social capital is capital. Being able to know someone is helpful. And sometimes social capital can outweigh like actual financial money capital. And so that was like an exchange introducing this idea of like networking can be just as powerful and just as valuable as actually working for yourself. Some might even say having someone else take care of you is more of a finesse than taking care of yourself, like depending on your vantage point. So I wanted that exchange to sort of contain that difference between social and financial, and also like being brought up middle class affords you something that being brought up poor doesn't,
Yeah, just like that difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, kind of my next question. There was a lot of blood in this show. At different points, there was denial of blood. Then there was like some shame about blood. Then it was used as a weapon. And then sort of at the end is kind of a tool of defiance of the system. And so I just want to know, like, why, just to inform, why was blood such an important symbol in the context of the show?
Yeah, I love that. I love that question, actually. There's sort of something about the blood is always associated with violence, right? Just because it's like murder, da 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 da, blood. But then if you're a woman, you also like, or not if you're a woman, but if you menstruate, right? Like period, period blood. That has none of the violence, has none of the gore, but there is something about period blood where it's still like hush hush. You know, there's still something like, oh, you handle that in private. However, you can see how many Hollywood movies or how many movies do you see people just get violently assaulted or like there's so much blood and like it's never blocked out. However, like period blood is just never spoken about. Even in period commercials, it's always some blue liquid. There's like, what is wrong with period blood and why is it censored? Like, why is it so sanitized? Why is it why should it be avoided? And so there is something about like blood in terms of how it comes out like through a period that I've always been interested in. And then also the violence that is sort of on the surface, right? The immediate instinct is blood is violence. So to sort of play with like the assumed violence of blood and sort of juxtapose it with like the the privacy and the quiet and the sanitized sort of relationship to period blood, which is something I thought was fun. I really just think I just thought it was fun. So I just started playing with it in this play. I was like, all right, what can you do with blood? What can you do with period blood? What can you do with people blood? At the end, what if we combine it? Like, what does that mean? And it means something. And I have an idea of what that means. But then obviously you and everybody who watches it or reads it or whatever, you also have like a certain like interpretation of what it means that the blood is being handled in that way. So it's just fun. It's like, for me, it's fun. It means something, but it's also really playful to play with the two dichotomies of blood in that way. I boil all that down to say it's just fun. I find blood to be fun.
Get rid of the stigma. Yes.
Destigmatize it.
That's so interesting. I've never thought about that take on. When you really said about the commercials being this blue liquid, I was, it's so strange.
Water is not even the consistency. I'm sorry. It's like, it makes no sense.
I know, that's insane. And so that's really, really interesting. And that's just a really inspiring take. And so I guess the last question that we have for tonight is, what message do you want viewers to take away from the show?
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
Because it's a hard question. I'll tell you why. It's a question, it's very common and I understand it, but there's also something where it's like, my takeaway from the story comes from the life that I've lived and sort of my own experiences and sort of boiling down my experiences to like how I feel about employment, how I feel about the economy that we live in, how I feel about sort of the compromises that I've had to do within the system that we live in. I feel uncomfortable saying my takeaway should be another person's takeaway, because I imagine if you grew up in a certain like class standing, or maybe you're not college educated like I am, or maybe you didn't grow up middle class there's just so many factors that go into like how someone perceives art and what their takeaway is, that I truly believe every takeaway that you should be so personal to you, where it actually causes you to like act on it, or it changes you in a way where it's like, oh my God, I've been moved so much that like I have a new idea, or I want to do something different. And so it should be so personal to you that when you say it, that if I were to tell you mine, you'd be like, all right, well, that has nothing to do with my life. Like, or you'd be like, oh, that's a cute thought. Oh, that's a smart thought. I intellectually get it. But every takeaway that you get from art, I feel should be something that it's like, oh, I feel moved. Oh, I have like a new insight. Oh, I feel enlightened. Or, oh, I feel like, oh, pivot, oh, shift. So I don't think I don't have a singular takeaway that the audience should have. I think you can watch this and be like, I didn't get it. And I'd be like, that's your takeaway. Hello, you didn't get it. You now know what to avoid. You now know what to, you know, like, or you could take away that something, I don't know. I'm just happy that people have watched it. You know, I'm just happy that someone took the time to see it. I'm like, all right, that's all I can ask for. Anything post like you viewing the show, it's just like, oh, you liked it? Thank you. Oh, that's what you got from it? Thank you. Oh, you didn't like it? You didn't have to tell me. All right, go. You know?
My goodness. Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess art really is up for interpretation, honestly. Yeah. Yes. I want to thank you so much for joining us here today, for sitting down, taking some time to talk to us and give us some insight of your world. Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, y'all. This was so much fun.
Seriously, this was so inspiring, and I am left sort of speechless. I think I'm gonna let myself soak and marinate in everything that we've just talked about. How we look at blood, how we look at capitalism and consumerism, and even how we look at art, and how art is used to mobilize our thinking and lead to action. And I think you've talked about some really, really great things that I'm gonna be doing a lot of thinking about. So thank you so much to our guest Ada A for coming and for sharing about your wonderful, wonderful talents in art. And thank you all for the guest and who might be seeing this or who might be checking in later to watch this. And everybody go watch Tokens of Promise. And everybody have a great night. Thanks all. Bye.